Rick, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Cuyahoga County Legislative Delegation. I'm Robert Pritt. I'm the City Attorney for Naples. I'm here on behalf of Mayor Bill Barnett and the City Council of the City of Naples. Mayor Barnett is right here in the front row, and he's here with the City Manager, Bill Moss. We're requesting assistance from the legislature in repealing or amending the state preemption against city and county regulation of outdoor smoking. The City Council and the administrative staff on a daily basis employ every method available to keep the beaches, parks, playgrounds, public places, and outdoor dining areas within the city clean, safe, healthy, and yes, even elegant. It has long been the goal of the city to provide both residents and visitors a totally positive and annoyance-free experience. Mayor Barnett has worked tirelessly over many years to adopt reasonable and not overly intrusive local regulation of public use of tobacco products in these outdoor public places within the city. Unfortunately, it turns out that the biggest obstacle to keeping the beaches and public places free from this nuisance is the state statute itself. There's a provision in section 386.209 that preempts smoking to the state and supersedes any municipal or county ordinance on the subject. The history is, briefly, this was part of a pre-existing state law provision that was brought over and reenacted as part of the Florida Clean Indoor Air Act in 2003. That act implemented the constitutional amendment that had been approved by the voters in 2002. The Attorney General in 2005 opined that notwithstanding the fact that the preemptive provision is in an act entitled the Clean Indoor Air Act, it nevertheless preempts local regulation of outdoor smoking also. This has caused what we believe are unintended consequences. We did a little survey. It appears that a number of local governments, out of frustration, have adopted outdoor smoking regulations anyhow. Most that did so seem to have put them on the books but not enforced them, which is not a good thing. Some have made regulations voluntary only, and that presumably encourages local government personnel to bother smokers about doing something that is not unlawful. That's not a good thing either. From a drafting standpoint, elimination of the preemption can be done with the addition of a single word, and that's the word indoor before the word smoking. The section would then read, this part expressly preempts regulation of indoor smoking to the state and supersedes any municipal or county ordinance on the subject. There are two concepts that cause local officials to see red. One is unfunded mandates, which is really a money issue usually, but preemption is even worse because it prohibits a local legislation. It's often as a result, frankly, of lobbying efforts by an industry that does not want to deal with the local governments. One cannot blame them, but they should, in many cases, have to deal with local governments. Our local governments are the ones who are on the firing line and are answerable to those affected. Will this result in more regulation? I know that that's a sensitive issue nowadays. At the state level, no. As a matter of fact, it is one less state regulation. It will result in fewer headaches and expense within the Department of Health. At the local level, it will not be that expensive, and the regulation will only be to the extent that it is expressed by the will of the local community. In other words, those people being affected. Can the state do a better regulation than the local governments? Frankly, in this case, it's not likely. The state does have an inherent conflict in that the state's budget receives substantial revenues from the tobacco industry, and it's very difficult to regulate with a clear head when the state is addicted to some extent to revenues from those who are being regulated. The local governments have little or no incentive to go easy on the tobacco industry and can better focus on the quality of life issues in their own jurisdiction. Proof that the state is not really interested in regulation of outdoor smoking is the lack of regulations on the subject. The only recent bill to temper the preemption was in 2007, and as far as I can tell, it went nowhere. Can the local governments be trusted to regulate responsibly? Of course. Look at the many local matters that they do regulate, subject always to judicial review and sometimes to partial state preemptions. Traffic, alcohol and drugs, zoning, and 100 others, I'm sure. The courts will curb regulations that turn out to be arbitrary and unreasonable. Is there a continuing risk to continuing to attempt to keep legislative control over outdoor smoking in public places. Yes, the trend appears to be in most states toward lifting the preemption. The people in Florida have passed the indoor smoking constitutional provision by a 75% margin, and it's conceivable that without some relief from the legislature to allow reasonable local regulation at the local level, the citizens may take that to the voters. Now, in closing, you will note that I did not say a word about the hazards of smoking or about the right to smoke in private areas, whether indoors or out of doors. I'm only referring to smoking and the use of tobacco in public places where others are subjected to unhealthy results of the habit against their will. I was glad to answer any questions you might have.
Question?
Yeah,
Representative Pasadena, you're right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. I have a couple, I read, first of all, the statute that you provided in the information is the current law. Without strikeouts and other ones. Okay. What I don't understand is why that 386-209 appears sort of in the middle of the statute. And is it your contention that that might have been a mistake because the whole act appears to be geared towards indoor smoking with the legislative intent to promote, to protect individuals from the health hazards of secondhand smoke. So I have a couple questions. If the whole act was intended on indoor spaces, why did they put this in the middle? And secondly, is the secondhand smoke issue on an outdoor basis as well? Could they? It just doesn't make sense.
On the first, that one's a little easier, I think. There was a pre-existing regulation that preempted smoking to the state. It just, all smoking. In 2002, I believe it was 2002, the voters adopted the constitutional amendment having to do with indoor smoking, regulation of indoor smoking. In 2003, the legislature responded by doing the rest of the bill that you see there. And they just patched the old section with a preemption into the new bill. How much thought went into that, I don't know. There's not that much on. Matter of fact, I couldn't find anything on that aspect of it, but they just put that in there. And then, an indication that it might have been a mistake is that bill, of course, is called the Florida Clean Indoor Air Act, and there you have an outdoor provision, preemption that's in there also. Now, on the second one, not sure I understood your question on that. But
is there an argument that could be made that there was an intent to regulate the outdoor smoking because of the health secondhand? And you're saying the reason that they passed this Clean Indoor Act, whatever it is, to protect the public from hazards of secondhand tobacco smoke. I mean, that's the whole purpose of it. That's what it says.
Yes.
So, is there an argument that can be made that you get the same result outdoors?
Well, absolutely. With regard, anybody who's been on a beach and next to a smoker, you're going to get secondhand smoke. And every time you're next to the smoker, the wind's coming your way. The focus, I think, was in 2002 and 2003 was on the matter at hand, which was indoor smoking on bars, restaurants, public places, and so on. I don't think that there has been a lot of, at least official, review of the outdoor smoking issue. But it's just not a good thing to have cities and counties going off and doing regulations that are that contravene what the Attorney General says the law is. If you read the law, it seems to say that the preemption goes to outdoor smoking also. So our point simply is that you don't have to regulate on that. Let the cities and counties try to do that. You'll save money. The state will save money. If it becomes a problem, I'm sure that the tobacco industry will be back to tell you what the problem is. But it's a really good way to clean up the trash on the beaches and in the parks. I think the cities and counties will have to do it responsibly. Thank you.
Senator Rector, you're recognized for.
Well, I just would make a comment. I know Mayor Barnett has been working on this tirelessly for years. It just proceed, enforcing it, and especially enforcing it among foreign visitors. I'm of the perception that Europeans are stuck more on the habit of smoking than are we. And we do get a lot of foreign tourists.
Like many regulations, it's not easy. One of the reasons we're before you is because the litter laws just don't work. We cannot have a police officer or a code inspector following every single person all the time. So if we had the opportunity to have a local law such as this, that could actually become part of the culture of our cities. Now, not every city and every county is going to want to bother with that, especially if they don't have the ones that are internal in the state. They're not going to be as concerned about the beach issue. But I think that this can actually be used to have a little cachet for the city. Hey, folks, we have a special rule here. It doesn't mean that there won't be designated smoking areas. There won't be different ways of handling it. Local governments can come up with resourceful ways of doing it. And just by doing that and by being proud and showing the visitors that this is a little bit different, so don't go smoke here or don't go smoke next to somebody else. I think they can be trained, and I think it would be better.
You'd like to solve.
Yeah, we'd like to take a shot at it anyhow, but it's a great question. And those are issues that local governments deal with on a regular basis, being so close to the people that are being governed. And they do come into city council chambers, they do come in here to this room, and we would like to take a shot at being able to have some reasonable regulations on that. And I was kind of proud of myself being able to change it with just one word changed.
Anything else?
I have a question. Has the Florida League of Cities or the Florida Association of Counties weighed in on this particular issue?
They have, I've checked with the Florida League of Cities. I don't know about the Florida Association of Counties. I don't think we have anything that is in their legislative packet recently. I did talk to them, talked to Chip Morrison, and he remembered the 2007 bill that was adopted, or that was put before, it was filed and didn't go anywhere. And so I don't know that there's anything that's currently on their radar screen.
Okay. All right.
We hope that there will be by the time we get to see it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Good to see you, Mayor. Thanks for your efforts.